What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Legacy Podcast. Today I'm sitting down with Lea Aylor, who is the CEO of Republic Hospitality. If you've ever seen Southern Charm or the show Southern Hospitality, it is about their hospitality group and all the restaurants that they run and all the daily craziness that happens in the restaurant industry. So we're sitting down with Lea today. I want to ask her all sorts of questions about the restaurant industry, what's been going on, and my thought is I'm going to break down the different elements of business and see what's going on in each one of those different elements of business in the restaurant hospitality industry. So let's talk about marketing. Let's talk about finance. Let's talk about accounting and sales and building a team and operations and all those different components that are involved in every business. And let's talk a lot about what they're doing and how they're excelling and doing awesome things in an industry where it's a little bit tough right now to survive. And they're not only surviving, they're thriving. So we're here at Bourbon N Bubbles. We're gonna go sit down with Lea. I'm excited for this episode. Lea, great to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, and excited to have you on the Legacy Podcast. So we're here at Bourbon N Bubbles, right here on King Street. You guys have a few different concepts. You got Lamar's next door, I know Republic's down the street, and you got a lot of good things going on here. You guys are kind of known as the hospitality group right here on King Street, doing some amazing things, continuously expanding, really leading the charge with what you guys do in the hospitality industry. And so let's dive into your background first. So
Sure.
You're the CEO of this fantastic hospitality group here in Charleston. How did you come into that role? How did you come into that position?
Yeah, so I was in Las Vegas prior to Charleston. I did attend the University of South Carolina.
Okay.
So that's my attachment to the Carolinas.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Potomac, Maryland, right outside of DC. Grew up there, went to University of South Carolina for college, met my boyfriend at the time, now husband. He was taking a law job out in Las Vegas and was like, come with me. I was like, this is crazy, but sure. So we went out to Las Vegas, and obviously Las Vegas is the hospitality capital of the world, the pinnacle, the best. 5-star resorts, mega 24/7, just top tier hospitality. So I got my foot in the door through a few connections at Aria Resort and Casino, and kind of climbed the corporate ladder there. Overall, kind of executing high-end events for corporate companies, logistics, details, all 9 yards, putting on events for 8,000 people. Did that for 7 years. Wanted to kind of slow down, start a family, move back East Coast, closer to family, in-laws, help have a baby, do that whole thing. So we came back to Charleston in 2021, and I was connected to ownership here through, again, a connection, a networking connection. Had a conversation and kind of got my foot in the door as director of sales and brand experience for Republic Hospitality. And after kind of a year and a half of doing that, ownership said, I want you to run my company, essentially. So here we are.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to not only your work ethic, but like you being able to come in and provide value, right? Like you came in and at a certain role and you said, hey, it came in at a great role, but at the same time, you're like, I know that I could be here.
Sure.
And coming in with that confidence and really doing more than you even got paid for in order to make an investment in the future.
Right.
I think it's one of those concepts that I'd love to instill into other people of like, come in, show up, provide so much value that the ownership can't afford to lose you, right? And they will recognize that, and they will give you opportunities for growth from that point on.
It's hard to teach people that, though. I haven't figured it out
really
yet.
Tough.
If you know any secrets, let me know.
Well, it's just I think awareness is probably the first thing.
Yeah.
Right? Sharing, your own testimonial, your own experience, and then at the same time, some people just don't have it. Some people do have it, right?
Right.
But I think it's that quantity leads to quality of just continuously having that conversation. All of a sudden, somebody's like, you know what? I could be that, right? I could be that position.
Right. Kind of like tapping into their inner strength, dusting it off, see if they can bring it out.
Well, I remember going to conferences and sitting in rooms and seeing the guy up on stage, and I was like, I could totally be that.
Yeah.
Right? I could totally do that one day. I'm not there yet, but I need to personally develop. I need to grow. I need to invest in myself. I need to go do some deals. And then all of a sudden, they start putting me up on stage, right? And then all of a sudden I have these events of my own and hundreds of
Right.
people there, and it's wild how like you can kind of visualize it and eventually it comes full circle for you.
sure.
And I'm sure you had confidence in yourself of being like, I could run this thing, right? And then that confidence gets exuded in a way that you show up, you run the ship, you're like, I'm not dealing with this, you take ownership over it. And that ownership mentality is hard to teach someone.
Sure.
But they found the right person, right? And then they recognized it and put you in a position where, you're running, you guys have what, 4?
1, 2,
5?
3, 4, and expanding 5 come this spring.
I love it.
Keep going up.
And who knows, right?
Exactly.
And I want to hit on all that stuff. But,
Sure.
But that's really cool. So they come to you in 22, 23?
I think it was 2021. I moved
okay.
August 2021. I moved from Vegas to Charleston, and within a couple of months of being here, networked with some people, kind of got my foot in the door and started.
It's awesome. And so overall, there's been a lot of hurdles. There's been a lot of struggles in the hospitality industry. What I'd love to do is just go like pillar by pillar of, marketing and sales, finance and accounting, and then operations and human resources. Because I think when other people are failing, you guys are succeeding. You guys are having a lot of success. Not only are you succeeding and surviving, you're thriving and being able to now expand into a lot of different things. So let's talk about that. What are you seeing in the industry that people are not doing that you guys do really, really well? From a marketing standpoint. Let's start out with marketing and sales.
Yeah, marketing and sales, I mean, that's kind of the beginning and the heart of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people will neglect sales and marketing, but like everybody needs that top line in order to put some things to the bottom line.
It's the lifeblood of business.
The life of a business. And I think a lot of departments and things, in my mind, everybody is sales and marketing. We all have to push for it. Even when you're the operator and welcoming people into the restaurant, you got to put your sales cap on, whether that's touching the tables, offering to, upgrade them on a bottle of wine. Everything is sales. So it's kind of been the foundation of how this group began. Ownership back in the day were promoters and events. They would pack out other people's bars.
They understood that aspect of it.
And that's how it started. That's how this began. So it has always kind of been the forefront of Republic Hospitality, the marketing, the promotion, the sales, and how important that is. We do have a reality television show about us right now that is about one of our concepts, all of our concepts, ownership. That is a strong marketing tool
that
that
helps.
That 97% of other businesses, restaurants, do not have.
Yeah. 99.9997%.
Right. So we're
And that's
always
Southern Hospitality.
correct. Southern Hospitality and Southern Charm.
And Southern Charm.
Yes. So that is one leg of it, but you can't ever take off the gas, your foot off the gas for marketing, for sales. The moment you do, you begin to see the dips.
Yep.
So we understand that is a crucial part of the business, and ownership has created ways to find that platform, not only locally, but throughout the United States on a marketing platform that many wish to conquer.
How is it that, because you see the restaurant industry, like there's so many restaurants that come and go, and eventually some restaurants, like your guys' restaurant, is like the cool place to be, the hip place to be. How do you create that atmosphere and create that brand around where people think of you in that capacity? Is that a luck of the draw thing, or is that a very curated and disciplined and efforted type of thing? Like how do you get that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts from the top and is channeled all the way down of the brand, the vision, what goes into it, the details, the everyday understanding of what we're offering here, and driving it home every single day. Because it's definitely easy to fall off of that brand and fall off, especially if you're aiming for something like luxury, upscale. It's an everyday push that everybody in the building has to understand what that vision is.
What does that look like when you were putting that together, or as a team, you sat down with the ownership and said, "Hey, this is the concept." You guys do a brainstorming session and whiteboard it all out and put all the different words up there that you want to be kind of known as.
Right.
And then you create the brand strategy, and then from there, the design concept comes.
Right.
And then from there, you're having a conversation with the employees and the team.
Yep.
And making sure that everything aligns with that. Is that kind of?
Exactly. This vision was kind of in ownership's head. They then transpire it to the build out, get the operations involved, myself involved, and listening to them kind of for months discuss what this vision is. They see it before it comes to life. So, my job is to make sure I'm listening for those several months of the planning of the vision and then help the operation bring this vision to life.
Yeah, I love it.
And then to the staff.
I think it's super cool. And I think that kind of transitions us to the next pillar, which is really kind of the team and the operations side of things. And so a lot of restaurants, I going through it on the property level of just staff salaries are higher. If you want to be everybody's working from home, even if you're in a big company, so the small businesses don't get that opportunity anymore.
Right.
So there's been a lot of hurdles in the labor force and in the employment side of things. And you see, minimum wage increasing dramatically. Some of the things that are on Trump's side of his platform is I think tips are not taxed or something along those lines too.
Right.
How has that type of stuff affected the restaurant industry and the hospitality industry?
Yeah, we've certainly felt the wage increase, the team building.
Yep.
It's tough. I think for all industries, people, understanding them, getting the best out of them, it's a challenge.
Very much so.
It's an everyday hustle. And when you do find those important people, you want to keep them. And sometimes that's not through compensation. Sometimes it's through team outings or perks or being heard or one-on-ones. And it's you got to understand for that individual what motivates them.
Yep.
And we're still figuring it out on a daily basis. And sometimes I'm not the best at praising everybody and I'm just beaten, you got to take a step back and remember to understand your team, what motivates them, who needs that pat on the back, understanding, is it the love language? I can't remember what those things are, but
No, I agree 100%. I think it's so for you guys. Is it always be recruiting? Are you always hiring? Are you always interviewing? Are you always going? I think so, right?
I think you have to be. Exactly.
People are we're all staffed up. We're not
You're
running
never
ads
staffed
anymore.
up.
You're not, right?
1 week you are, the next we're
Exactly.
gone. So.
And so it's like prospecting in anything. When I'm prospecting for real estate deals, I'm always prospecting because otherwise you have these feast and famine cycles of a lot of deal flow and no deal flow, a lot of deal flow, no. And so the same thing is I'm always prospecting for private money of investors. Sometimes I'm money heavy, sometimes I'm deal heavy and I don't have enough money. But if you're always prospecting, then you're always, it creates a level of evenness then in the business. And I think team building is one of those things and always recruiting great team members. Even if you're fully staffed up, always put it out there because you can always swap out. CEO of GE, Jack Welch, he used to fire the bottom 5-10% of his company every single year and just bring in new people. And just by the average bottom 10% being removed, you bring in some new people, it elevates everybody, right? 'Cause they're definitely going to be better than the bottom 10%, or at least they can't be worse than that.
Right.
And so every year to create a little bit of a difficult work environment, of perform or get the hell out kind of a thing. But that's why GE went on this huge gain while he was their CEO. And so it's fascinating to see big businesses do that, right? But small businesses, or at least from my experience, is it's a little bit tougher because you're trying to create a culture, right?
Right.
You're local, and it's not as just throw somebody by the wayside. You got to focus on business, but there's also this cultural aspect of
it's a balancing act almost.
Because everybody in the industry, especially F&B, talks about working at different establishments. I'm sure, right? And what that culture is like and what that looks like. So the team building. So as far as team building, so you're always recruiting, and then you're training them, making sure that as people come in, what does that training process look like? You guys really dive deep into that to make sure that they understand your concept and they understand what you guys believe in, and they're fitting into the corporate values.
Right. And again, it's always a work in progress. Are we? And I'll always look to ourselves are we sending the right message out? Is it me where they're not picking up what we're putting down? Do I need to better communicate of how this brand should be? Organized, or are people just not listening and checked out and it's going in one ear out the other? But I'll always look at myself first to be how can I maybe better improve this process until I'm or maybe just someone's just not in it and maybe it's not a good fit sort of thing.
Do you do any like behavioral assessments or like personality tests on people when you're looking to hire them?
Not completely, but
Like
I
DISC
think
assessment or predictive index or like Myers-Briggs.
I
like
think
there's
it'd
all
be a
those,
great option for the managers,
I agree. Definitely
and
management.
our management has been around for a while, which is awesome. Like, that's great to see that people want to stay and are enjoying, at least so far, because there is a lot of turnover in food and beverage hospitality. And there's a lot of great options on King Street to work as a server, bartender, a manager. So I always am, it keeps me, a little prideful inside that I'm like, all right, there are people here that have stuck around, they're wanting to learn and they're wanting to put their best foot forward. How do we take this to the next level?
Well, I think that goes back to the branding conversation too. Is like people want to be associated.
Totally.
Like their personal value or the personal reputation a lot of times is reflected based on the company that they work for, right?
Totally.
They're not going to go and work for some, or like maybe they go work for a dive bar. That people look at them and they're like, oh, well, you work at a dive bar and that's okay and whatever. But there's probably a sense of confidence and aura and coolness when you say that you work for your guys' hospitality group.
For sure. And I also always want to bring out the best in the people that are here. Some might think I'm wild and regimented, I'm up at 4:30 working out, whatever, and I know that's not for everybody in this industry, but I want to bring the best out in the people that work here. And if they want to figure out how to do that as well, whether that's personally or through work, I want to inspire and help people reach their goals, whatever they may be,
And that caring shows, right? That caring comes across. And like you said before, it's not always about the paycheck. It's about working somewhere where the owner and the CEO actually gives a shit about you,
For sure.
actually cares about you and actually shows that they care, and they care about your personal development and your personal growth, and that will create a longer term commitment than an extra couple dollars an hour raise.
For sure, and it takes time. It's not something overnight. Building that core team and that community and that culture, it's not an overnight thing. It takes time. And again and again and again with the right people, and then they all start hopping on board.
So how do you, with like all the new technology stuff, AI, and you see like restaurants with little robotic arms making drinks and delivering food and stuff like that now, like how do you see new technology and like artificial intelligence changing the restaurant hospitality industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've attended a couple conferences in Charlotte and Vegas, just kind of taking a pulse on what's going on in the industry as far as like restaurants, operation, finance, tech. And at both of the conferences, they're all talking about AI, robotic arms, operational effectiveness, and technology. And I think a lot of restaurants are kind of like old school, mom and pop, just doing things paper.
Yeah.
But I think, this past year and moving forward, it's kind of a sink or swim, and I think you have to be ready to pivot no matter what, and pivot into like technology, understanding it. How can we increase our operational effectiveness? In hospitality, you run into a lot of headaches, hiccups, guests. We already deal with that. So how do we make this operation as clean cut and really easy for everybody so that we can focus on our guests? They're enjoying themselves while they're here. I think and restaurants have to read up, learn, and invest in those areas that are gonna like take restaurants to the next level from that operational AI tech robotic arm thing.
It's wild. It's wild. Well, I think there's, kind of depend, if you're going to be into that, you got to be all in on it.
Correct.
Right? And I think the people who dip their toe in things are just lukewarm, that's not good, right? Like maybe coming here, somebody wants more of that personalized, customized service, high end, talk to a person, but it's an experience if you go to New York City and they're sending food down on a conveyor belt, and when it gets to you, you take it off the conveyor belt and then you eat it, right? Like that's a different experience, but I'd expect that when I go in.
Right.
I think meeting the expectations is going to be one of those things over time that, we'll see how it changes the industry though.
For sure.
I want to shift gears again and move over to like the finance and accounting side of things. I mean, I think every business should be doing this, but like I just went through one of my businesses over the past like 2 weeks, and we shed tens of thousands of dollars a month of unnecessary expenditures. And I think every business has fat on their profit and loss statement that can be trimmed. When you look at a business, when you look at a restaurant, something in the hospitality industry, what are kind of the line items that you see where there's just too much fat and if somebody wanted to run a more profitable business, or more restaurants would stay in business if they paid attention to a couple of line items? Like, what are those couple of things where you see people really missing the mark?
Great question. I mean, obviously in food and beverage, there's things you can control, there's things you can't control. We can't control what the rent is. That's locked in the beginning. That's not something that's variable. It's fixed. So the variable things you can focus on would be your cost of goods sold, your labor and wages, maybe evaluating kind of the cleaning bills on a monthly basis. Is there areas you can cut? Those are some of the things we kind of look at.
So how do you track? So let's talk about, well, here's the thing on rent. Like, one of the things I always talk to about the doctor buddies of mine and the dentist buddies of mine and the white collar professionals is like, own the building, right? Buy the building, and then you can control the rent.
For sure.
My buddy Clint Gaskins, he owns Longboard over on Sullivan's Island. He signs like a 40-year lease when he comes into a restaurant and gets a substantial discount because he signs a long-term lease.
Yep.
And he's got the intent of running it for 10, 20 years.
Right.
And then he could still sell the lease at this reduced rate to
Right.
some other business whenever he sells the company, right? And so it's a very different perspective that he has versus a lot of other restaurants where they're like, I don't want the liability of a long-term lease.
Right.
Where it's kind of like his secret sauce, if you will, for a lot of his establishments. And so that's one thing on the rental side. But like on those other things that you'd mentioned, like, how do you attract good people to your team and still pay attention to that overhead? Because cost of labor is a very big cost.
Yeah.
It's usually number one or number two on everybody's profit and loss statement on the expenses.
For sure. And I mean, sometimes it takes sitting down with ownership, accountants, getting those heads together, evaluate everything. What makes sense? What is working? What's not working? Do we restructure this somehow? You know, and kind of just evaluate. But it's something that's got to be evaluated on a quarterly basis.
Yeah.
Especially as things are changing, cost of food's going up. It's all got to be tracked, monitored, and have a toe and pulse on it.
Are there restaurants that have get creative on, sales, right? And so, hey, if you're able to get the party that's sitting at this table over here to spend an extra $100 on this bottle of wine, you earn a commission on it, or like, are there things like that happen in the industry that it's more like almost a variable, like you can drive your own compensation based on what this looks like?
Totally, and we toyed with ideas of just experimenting with staff incentives and like gamification.
Yeah.
What is going to motivate today's kind of generation? If it's not clocking in and out and getting the paycheck of $20 an hour or whatever it might be, do we need to pivot and figure out who are the hustlers out there, attract them and let them know they're able to make way above their hourly rate? And it's creative financing. They talk a lot about that in real estate.
Yeah.
I think it's all kind of a similar concept. How creative can you get with your staff, your people, your management, your P&L, to find what works? And it's pivoting, discovering, meeting. It's an everyday thing, whether it's real estate, restaurant. I think similar kind of like foundations of making that business run and be most profitable, but also having the team and balancing the balancing act of all.
No, I agree. Like you either evolve or you go extinct. And so that evolution is as simple as going line by line in a profit and loss statement and saying, hey, how do we generate more income?
Right.
How can we drive revenue? How can we increase this number? And by increasing the income, you increase the net operating income, right? And by decreasing expenses, asking questions. How do we reduce this? How can we lower this price point? How can we shop this around and get a better pricing? And I think it's a game of balancing both of those things. But I don't know about you, but like, have you seen the consumer mindset shift over the past couple of years? I feel like people are just not as price conscious as they used to be 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I feel like people are they just go and spend money, right? They're like, I'm a very frugal person.
For sure.
And I pay attention to dollars and cents and all this other stuff. And I don't like spending money on certain things. And I'll spend a lot on other things like experiences. But like, I don't like spending money on certain things. I feel like everybody just kind of spends money now. And you guys are a high-end concept. Do you feel like, have you guys had any pushback? Have you find that it's just easy that people come in and they're not concerned about price points or anything like that in the hospitality industry anymore?
It's a great question. I mean, this year's been interesting with inflation, outside of everything. Groceries are expensive. Everything's expensive. I I think it's all about the value. People understanding
I agree.
the concept and the brand from the outside, understanding like what their experience is going to be coming in, and that like you got to deliver on it. In a time when things are a little bit more expensive, you might get those customers who are expecting more, or I'm paying XYZ for this. So it's really, again, part of that whole operation and experience of marketing and sales that like we as a restaurant have to make sure we're delivering, whether times outside are crazy or not. I think if we can like stick to that, it's important, because if they find the value, whether it's $500 or $20, their expectations were met or exceeded, we're okay.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. You guys have some really good concept stuff going on right now. You got 4 locations, opening up a 5th location. What does it look like? Is it scalable? Do you have to franchise? Like, what does it look like for the next, 5 years? What's on the vision board for the next 2 to 5 years for you guys? And kind of what are your ambitions and goals?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'd love to understand what is the exit strategy also for a lot of restaurants and hospitality groups. Is it to cash flow it forever? Is it eventually sell it? Is it just make it a lifestyle type business, or what?
Great question. So yes, we are expanding. We've got the 4 concepts now, 5th on the way, opening this spring, which is Zachary's Daiquiris, kind of a frozen daiquiri concept, frozen Aperol spritz, fun.
I love it.
High-end kind of frozen treats on the corner.
I was gonna say, where's that?
Next to Republic, the Old Basil.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, King and Anne, I think that is.
That's a big space, right?
It is.
Because you guys, I noticed when I came through here is like, these aren't big spaces. Obviously, you can sit a lot of people in here, and you can turn over, I'm sure, and you have a good amount. But I was impressed because I could tell that you guys get it. Where the more square footage, the more expensive it is, and like, I don't know, all the restaurants and stuff that I see that are crushing are usually to-go concepts, or they have a little bit smaller dining space. Because rent is so expensive. That's a big number, right?
For sure.
And so you guys have been very good at that, of keeping these high-end, upscale, lower rent numbers, seemingly. But that's a big space. So what's the idea? It seems like a little different than what you guys have done in the past.
For sure. So I kind of like to say like Palm Beach meets Charleston meets Wet Willie's, for lack of better terms.
Yeah, I remember Wet Willie's.
Higher end, skinny margarita with Casamigos, and kind of those like premium cocktails. Fun, light pastels, floor-to-ceiling windows, different than our other concepts. As you can tell, they're all very unique. They're outside the box. They're different to Charleston. Sometimes people, are like, whoa, what is this? And we kind of focus on bringing kind of like what you see in bigger cities into the smaller city of giving you something that you're not going to get in Charleston.
Well, you differentiated yourself because of that.
For sure. There's a little bit of everything. You can start your night at Mesu enjoying tacos and sushi, work your way to Lamar's for an after-dinner drink, and the final hurrah is at Republic Garden and Lounge for that, final celebration of the evening. And so there's something for everybody within the portfolio. We're certainly expanding, but we always want to make sure that we've got the right tight operation in place, the right people, the right structure to make sure we can plug that scale and not strain anywhere. So we're kind of evaluating that now, just making sure that we've got the right ducks in a row, the right people, what makes sense to allow us to be able to do this boom growth. And
when you guys think about boom growth, are you thinking duplicating these concepts in other cities, or are you thinking continuing to opening up new concepts in the same city of Charleston?
I think it's a conversation we're probably about to have, seeing maybe which of these concepts could be that one that can scale. It could be Zachary's Daiquiris,
Right.
Simple, easy, fun, approachable. It kind of just depends on what makes sense, what numbers work, and what we think's doable. But, sky's the limit. You never know when you get an offer the next day. You just kind of keep grinding through doing what you're supposed to do, and sometimes that's when the magic happens the next day, when you're ready to think you can't do it anymore. Someone comes and offers to
throw
do
it
X, Y, Z.
Oh man, I got another opportunity. I got to take it now.
Exactly.
That's funny. So let's shift gears from the business side to the personal side.
Sure.
Because we were talking offline that you're interested in real estate.
For sure.
And interested in doing some of that stuff where you can kind of control your long-term wealth, and you got a great thing going on here, and as you guys continue to grow and all that stuff. But on the side, you're also very interested in real estate, holding some rentals long-term and getting into that side. So tell me a little bit about what kind of was the impetus of that? What kind of got you excited about that? And what's your vision for it?
For sure. So I worked for a corporate company before, right? So you don't really get access to all the way to the top, how the leadership direction and minds think. What's been really awesome with working with kind of a smaller company is that you're the right hand to the ownership mindset. So being able to get a front row seat to kind of thinking how entrepreneurs think and operate and all the above is unmatched.
It's assets and liabilities, right?
It's incredible.
How many assets can I acquire? How many assets can I create?
Yeah, and it's opened to my mindset of, wait, this is incredible. Like, I used to always wonder, you go to college and then what? You're just kicked out into the real world and you're supposed to figure out how life works. And then I realized, it's all self-taught. It's all, you got to read, you got to learn. It's all within you to figure out, what your destiny entails.
Yep.
And surrounding yourself with those sort of individuals, like-minded, it's opened my mind to knowing what's possible in life, and that's invaluable. So that's been really incredible. It's kind of just opened my mind of you got to do some stuff for yourself.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, you can do your W-2 and all that good stuff, but what are you doing for yourself? Oh my goodness, I got to do something for myself, So
So have you had that conversation? Is your husband interested in that too?
So he's an attorney, and I'm spearheading the side hustle,
Okay.
if you will, of figuring out he's on board. But he's gonna do his attorney thing, and I'm gonna.
Have you looked at what kind of assets you want? Do you want to buy apartments? You want to buy single-family homes? You want to buy mobile home parks? You want to buy retail, mixed-use buildings?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I thought single-family home, but I really would love to kind of go 0 to 100 as I can. So multifamily sounds where it's at. And I've listened to a couple of your podcasts. You did a 2-hour one. I don't know if it was Real Estate Disruptor or something. Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
That was really eye-opening and really interesting. So I'm in the process of sending mailers out because I can do that right now. That's easier for me while I work a full-time job, and that's where my dedication and focus is. Working with a local real estate investor, sending some mailers out and seeing if I can target some off-market multifamily 2-unit, 4-unit, stick my foot in there, see how that goes.
I love it.
You just got to jump in. You mentioned, you can read all you want, you can analyze all you want, but until you get in it, there's no better learning experience. So
it's like trying to teach somebody how to bartend by reading about bartending in a book.
Correct. You got to get through a shift.
Yeah, get through a shift. Mix a drink. Have it taste like shit. Have it drop a bottle, whatever it looks like. You got to experience it. Have 1,000 people asking for drinks all at once. You can't read about that in a book.
Totally, and you'll get spanked and whipped and be like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, this is crazy. What am I doing? But you learned how to make X, Y, Z.
That's where the growth comes.
It's the growth, absolutely.
And that's equally important in buying rental properties. Just buy something. And if I could give any advice there, it's try to find something that meets the 1% rule, which is if I can be into this and it can rent on a monthly basis for at least 1% of what my all-in cost is, then I'm interested, right? If you can buy a fourplex for $100,000 a door, $400,000, can you get $1,000 a month rent on a per unit basis? It's going to probably cash flow positive. It'll be able to cover all your operating expenses.
Yep.
You'll be able to cover your debt service, and then you can probably put a couple bucks in your pocket too, and make sure that you understand how everything works. Then you can go do it again, do it again, do it again.
Do you think that exists, 400,000 around these areas?
So it's a little bit tough in Charleston. I think you have some history in Columbia, right?
Yep.
And I think when you start getting to the outskirts, it's feasible, right?
Yeah.
I bought an awesome building in, I got some stuff down in Savannah that I own for about $150,000, $160,000 a door, and it rents for $1,600 a month. Now those are townhomes that I own down there. I also built them, so I created some of that equity.
Sure.
And they're worth a lot more, but I'm into them for that lower basis. Charleston's growing like crazy.
For sure.
And if you're willing to kind of get on a little bit of the outskirts or some of the more C-class areas right now, maybe, I started in C-class and D-class areas where it's definitely not where you want to stay.
Right.
But it gets you in, and the way the growth is happening, I bought, some of my first properties I ever bought were over off of Remount Road in Hanahan area, and I bought them for $20,000 a door.
Wow.
Sold them for $45,000 or $50,000 a door. I was like, this lady's she's gonna go bankrupt, right? Because she's never gonna make her money back off of these. And then she sold them for $125,000 to $150,000 a door, like within 5 years.
Incredible.
And now they're worth, $225,000, $250,000 per house now. And
Wow.
Charleston's a little bit more of that. Like, I'm from Ohio originally, and it's
Right.
all cash flow. And you can
Yeah.
buy limitless numbers of houses for $100,000 and rent it for $1,000 a month in greater Cleveland, Ohio. Less, but it doesn't appreciate at all.
Appreciation versus cash flow.
And so I think a delicate balance of that
Yep.
here in the Carolinas is good. I think there's plays from here through Georgetown up to Myrtle Beach.
Yep.
There's plays all the way to Somerville and Jedburgh and up towards Columbia.
How was managing, sometimes like running a business, it's really challenging managing on-site here, face-to-face. What was, I guess, the stepping stone for you being able to manage properties like far away? The right teams, the right people?
Yeah, it comes down to who are the resources, who's the team that you have, and having a big enough property that you can justify hiring those people and
Right.
justify the travel.
Right.
Right? Like, you don't want to buy a single family home in, I don't know, Tennessee.
Right.
And then you have to drive to it and travel to it, and just a flight and a hotel to go
Right.
and check on your single family home up there absorbs all the profit and all the cash flow that you made for the entire year.
Right.
Right? So it needs to be big enough where it justifies a flight, it justifies the time, justifies all that stuff. So maybe you buy one, but with the intent of buying many, many more. Or you just get into, like for me, it's a 100-unit apartment building. If it's 100 units, I know that it generates enough revenue on a monthly and annual basis where I can get a flight, I can send my team out there, I can hire on-site staff, and it makes sense to go and learn all the new rules and learn all the new laws and create a new team of contractors and vendors and suppliers and attorneys and whoever else that I need in that local site. But I'm a big believer that acres of diamonds in your own backyard. Just buy in your own backyard something that's drivable within
Right.
2 hours.
Yep.
And maybe it's not like, I don't even invest in downtown Charleston because there's New York money and stuff that comes in here that's turned a secondary, tertiary town into a primary market
Right.
for real estate investment.
Yeah.
Like, this building probably sells at a 4% cap rate, which is like extremely, that's like what things in Charlotte and Dallas sell for,
Right.
And we have it right here in Charleston, South Carolina, where there's only 300,000 people. It's like, how
Right.
is that possible? Well, it's because that institutional money has come in here. So I don't even buy anything in Charleston because it's too pricey for the most part. But there's definitely deals in the first tier and second tier suburbs of Charleston.
Right.
I own stuff, all the way down the Carolina coast into, you got Hilton Head and Bluffton and
Yeah.
Beaufort and Savannah and all the suburbs of Savannah and all that stuff. Like, there's some good markets there still where you can be within an hour or two drive and then just start collecting individual houses. But create the team, have the management team, have the contractors, have the vendors, the suppliers, understand the local laws, have a local attorney to help with evictions and laws and zoning and all that stuff. Or the other option is you stack a bunch of cash and you invest with somebody who knows what they're doing.
Right.
Because there's a learning curve.
For sure.
If I was like, you know what, Leah, I'm going to start my own restaurant. You're gonna exactly, right?
We gotcha.
But I'm going to do it as a side gig, right?
Right.
Well, this isn't a dip your toe in it. This isn't a,
Right.
And I think a lot of times people come into real estate and say this is a passive investment. It's not. It's another business.
Right.
Right. And if you want to make real business money with it, you need to treat it like a real business.
For sure. I don't know if there's such thing as like a passive business. Like, people talk like, oh, I want to own this. It's like passive as an owner. I'm like, I don't know if that exists. Like, a real owner, they have some sort of toe impulse on
Yep.
it. Like, if you want it to be successful, grow and do what it's supposed to. But that's just my own thing. I'm like, I don't think there's such thing as a passive business.
Well, like, even the owners here, they show up at 11 o'clock at night on
Correct.
a Friday.
Yeah.
When everybody else is out having fun, they come to go check on things when they're the busiest, and they're working on a Friday night, right? And
There's always a toe in it.
What does it look like? Yeah, there's a trade-off somewhere of, hey, you get the notoriety and the excitement and the exposure and the eyeballs and the, this put up on this pedestal, but you also work when other people are not working, right? And the
Correct.
holidays and the weekends and the evenings and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, what is the trade-off? And real estate can be similar, right? You're going to get calls on the weekends.
Yep.
If you don't have a team, you're taking those phone calls.
For sure.
There's emergencies, there's crazy stuff that happens, there's stupid lawsuits that you get drug into just because you're the rich landlord.
Yep.
And like, it's silly stuff. But you know, what does that look like? And so the only passive thing is like the people that I know that invest in our deals, for instance,
Right.
or invest in other people's deals with good operators, and they write a check for 50 grand, 100 grand, 300 grand, up $2 million, whatever the number is, and they make a fixed return on their investment.
Yep.
And then they have some equity in the deal. So they're
Right.
able to ride the upside of it. They're able to get some of the tax advantages, but they don't have to physically operate until they get to a point where
Right.
they want to, maybe.
Right.
But I think that's the true passive way of doing it, or at least partnering with somebody who is full-time.
Right.
You know, maybe figure out what you can bring, because you're working full-time over here. You need somebody who's working on a full-time basis in the real estate side of things to make sure things are being taken care of. But then
sure.
you're splitting equity. So now
Right.
you need to buy twice as many deals
Right.
in order to, because you only got 50% of those now.
Right.
In order to have the same amount of ownership in them. So, you know, I think it's like anything. You figure out what the destination looks like for you.
Yep.
Sometimes that's usually a financial target.
Yep.
And then you can reverse engineer the roadmap in order to get there. But
Yep.
understanding where you are today, where you want to go, and then figuring out the roadmap. There's a lot of different ways to get there. Obviously, the most direct and straightest and the shortest amount of time is probably the one that we want to go with. But there's a lot of ways to make money in real estate. I
For sure.
think for somebody, you know, I'd start with this landlord. Hey, can we buy this? Can we buy this condo? I don't know if it's a condo unit or if it's the whole building or mixed use or whatever, but like things like that, where you know that you're going to be a good tenant, you're going to pay rent for the next 15 years.
Right.
It's a good place to start
Right.
if you're not in real estate full time. Or can you go and raise some capital and deploy it in some different deals? And same way that the banks arbitrage other people's money by paying them this much and then lending it out at this much, could you go and get somebody's money and then make a spread on either the interest rate or make a spread on the equity, and you get the equity for bringing somebody else's money to a deal?
Right.
That's a cool position to be in too.
For sure.
So there's a lot of different ways. I would say don't think that you have to own 100% of the pie.
Yeah.
Right? You could own 50%, or like I own several thousand doors, and I own on average about, I don't know, probably somewhere between 35 to 40% personal equity that I have in those deals. And I don't own 100%, but I have a unbelievable lifestyle by just owning 35%
Right.
of all these doors. And you know, both financially and from a time standpoint, because there's other people who are really good at doing things that I'm not good at.
Right. Definitely
So.
takes an army, a team.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. So I think what you're doing though is a good move. I think looking for the looking for the small multifamily stuff, 2 to 4 units.
Right.
Single family, there's a lot more competition because owner occupants are there.
Yep.
And the small stuff is, you know, bigger than most people are thinking, but smaller than the big institutional folks. And so I think 2 to 4 units, 2 to 10 units.
Yeah, maybe
is a
being
really,
overlooked.
Exactly. It's kind
Yeah.
of bigger than the small guys, smaller than the big guys. And I think there's a sweet spot of 2 to 25 units that you could go in and start buying a lot of stuff of that size in the same area, and gives you the scale of getting into the big buildings, you know.
For sure, for sure. And I think it's similar, you know, my phone rings all the time here. There's constant issues. You know, you're an operator of a restaurant or a real estate, your phone's ringing.
Yep.
Toilets don't work here,
Yep.
toilets don't work at the rental place, you know?
Yeah.
So I've been able to kind of understand full-blown operations here, which is awesome and hard.
Yep.
So you should always apply it. I got to take this knowledge and apply it somewhere else as well.
Yeah, you can just apply it to another asset class, another different kind of asset, another type of business. But like we talked about before, those pillars of business transcend industry. It transcends product. It transcends service. It is, you understand finance and accounting, marketing and sales, operations and team building. And if you can take those same understanding and just bring it into a different asset class and build that out the way that it's going to serve you personally, I think you're in a great spot. So
For sure.
you definitely have the drive, you have the understanding, you have the intentionality of it. You can definitely do it. And
Jumping in.
You got access to resources. You call me every single
Totally.
time, and anytime you need it, and happy to point you in the right direction.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, it's been awesome hanging out with you.
You
Great
as well.
chatting with you.
Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely. And I got to bring Kate down here. We're going to grab some Bourbon N Bubbles.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Appreciate you, Lea.
Thank you.
A lot of really, really cool talking points with Lea. Really interesting to see how they're thriving and doing such amazing things in the hospitality industry when a lot of other businesses are struggling right now, or have been struggling over the past couple of years with all the different darts that are thrown their way. They've been able to really control the controllables and overcome a lot of those obstacles and create an unbelievable business and an unbelievable hospitality group where they're not just surviving, but they're expanding their operation, and they got some big goals for the next couple of years. So make sure if you come to Charleston, you got to check out one of their restaurants. They got some amazing locations with great food, great drinks, and hit me up. Maybe I'll come and meet up with you. We'll grab a pop together. So appreciate you guys being here. Until next week, we'll see you on the Legacy Podcast.